for being here today. I know our time is valuable, and it's great that everyone's willing to spend some time here and make some time of yourself available to us. Just want to go through a couple of administrative things on the agenda. The video of last June's meeting is available on the website. The next meeting of the PAB will be December 8th. Just want to say that not everyone from our law enforcement community could make it to the meeting today because there's apparently a Chiefs conference in Ocean City this week. Lieutenant Devil Bliss emailed me and said this is the second time that our meeting has conflicted with the Ocean City conference. And so I just want to let you know that we'll try to do better next time and make sure that we don't schedule this thing when you all have other responsibilities. But at least we have a few that made it, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Okay, one of the things I guess I want to go over as we begin the meeting is now that we've had 2 years, I guess this is the end of the second year of the PAB and the ACC being activated in Carroll County, it might be a good idea, and I've done this at a past PAB technical session meeting, but just kind of go over what our purpose and responsibility is here. And I went through the enactment of the Police Accountability Act, through the resolution of the county that acts that act into the county policies and procedures, and I came up with seven elements that I just want to share with you as to the reason why we're here. And the first one is to hold quarterly meetings with law enforcement, this is one of those meetings. The second one is work with law enforcement to improve matters of policing. The third one is ensure accountability and transparency over powers exercised by law enforcement. And that's where Tom and the ACC come in. Receive complaints of police misconduct. We see them, you get them, we refer them to Tom for adjudication. And then the PAB also reviews the outcomes of those matters that are considered by the ACC, which if you'll notice on your agenda, we just had a meeting an hour before this meeting where we went over the cases and we discussed how they were decided and the elements of them. And then the last thing is submit a yearly report to the commissioners that identifies trends and makes recommendations for improvements. And one of the things, I guess, related to that last one is the drafting of the end of the year report is coming soon. It's due by the end of December to the commissioners. And so I just want to remind everyone that we're going to begin working on that report to the commissioners, and I'm hoping that we can get participation from everyone, including law enforcement. Okay, any questions so far? None? Okay, thank you. One of the things that the PA did recently is we had a technical working session which occurred back in July. And I have provided a handout of that session. Some of you have already seen it through the email that Bethany sent out. I believe she also printed copies for everyone. But I just want to kind of go over a couple of the matters that the PAB went through as we discussed our role and the mission of the PAB in that closed session. One of the things we talked about was training up some members for the trial boards. We only have 2 people in Carroll County that are eligible to be on the civilian side of the trial board, and so we're trying to get more people, trained up. It's a 2-day training, I think, in Sykesville, and we're working to get more people trained up. Some of the members of the PAB have mentioned to me that they are willing to attend the trial board training, and it's just a matter of fitting it into their schedule, so I appreciate that. We also went over a brief overview of the PAB mission, which I've just went over with you. I also want to mention that Ian and Lisa, members of the board over here, worked on a flyer that we plan to provide to the public and to others when we have.
If you're interested.
Yeah, Ian's got and I think Bethany provided a copy to everyone. This, I think it was an excellent effort, and I want to give them kudos for a job well done. And this
Lisa did most of the work on it. Deserves most of the credit.
This flyer, we're going to be using it to sort of a meet and greet. When we go to meet and greet things, we also plan to use it when we speak to, we have plans to speak to groups, the Lions Club, and any other people that are willing to listen to us, to hand it out and to talk about the PAB and its mission. One of the things that the PAB has decided to do is we have rented a booth at the Fall Fest, which is upcoming on the 27th and the 28th of September. And we're going to be handing out the handout, the trifold, and we're going to be, talking to people about the PAB and letting them know what we do. And, I don't think that most of the county, most of the state knows that there is a PAB and knows that there is this act, and they don't know a thing about it. So I think public outreach, and this is one of the big points of the session that we had, the technical session that we had. I guess the big thing that came out of it was outreach. We need to inform the public of what we do and what the PAB is and what the Police Accountability Act is. So, in our defense, we're not trying to generate more complaints or trying to get people excited about filing them. We just want to get the word out, and we feel that that's our responsibility.
Bill, if I can, Joe brought up a good point. The state wants us to get the word out, right? Part of their thing is part of the mandate of this board is to get the word out about the PAB and do a good job. And to Joe's point, if we don't start doing what they are asking for, they're liable to come down with more regulations, So we're trying to do a good job of informing the public and hopefully to avoid a lot of the frivolous complaints that are coming up, So our role is certainly not to encourage just frivolous complaints, but to maybe educate the public a little bit to what constitutes a complaint, what doesn't, and then hopefully eliminate some of the, unsubstantiated.
Yeah, the last thing we need is even more top-down ideas from Annapolis in regard to this. So anything we can do to sort of head all that off at the pass and make it work with how it already is without it making it larger and more complicated. Yeah.
Yep, that's a great point. I've thought about that, so I think, that's what we're trying to do with getting some information out to people.
Any other comments from anyone? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, changes to the Police Accountability Act. Back in, earlier this year, I think it was in March, the legislature gave the governor an update to the Police Accountability Act, and he signed it into law, and it changed some of the timeframes that law enforcement has to provide investigations to the ACC. And it was, I think, there was no time limit before. The departments had no indication of what, when they had to provide the investigation. The way it works now is, as of October 1st, which is only 3 weeks away, the new law takes effect, and it requires once you receive a complaint, you have 334 days to investigate it and provide the results of that investigation to the ACC. The ACC then has 30 days after receipt of the investigation to provide to you its findings, and to the complainer too, I guess, its findings, or if they need an additional, or they can ask for additional information from you. The whole process, though, has to be adjudicated within 395 days. So after 395 days, if for any reason it goes beyond that time limit, the ACC loses its jurisdiction. Now, there's some other dates and times in here that are a bit complicated. I'm not going to go over them. You can read them yourself in the law. But in the event that an officer is charged criminally, there's some other dates and times that apply here, depending on how long that process takes and what the state's attorneys and others do relative to the prosecution. But for our purposes and for most of the cases that we hear, the departments are now required to provide that information to the ACC within 334 days. All right. Any questions about that? Okay, thank you. Wanted to make everyone informed about a couple of state police trial board cases that are coming in next month in October. Bethany and I got a email from the state police requesting a room and a trial board member for two Maryland State police officers that are the subject of complaints that I guess they didn't agree with the ACC and they wanted to go to a trial board. The first trial board is going to be October 7th in this in this building right here, and I believe it starts at 8 o'clock. So I was thinking if anybody has an interest in attending a trial board to see what a trial board is like, maybe to be able to tell others, tell your constituents, tell your officers or whatever, what goes on at a trial board, this might be a good opportunity to attend one to sort of see what it's like. It's open to the public from what I understand. The other one was on October the 20th, one on the 7th and one on the 20th. The one on the 20th was scheduled for a hearing here in this building, but apparently, according to Bethany, they wanted to have it online now. I guess it's through a Zoom call or something. So if you want to know how to get on that call, maybe you, Bethany, could they ask you how to get on it? I'm not sure about how to get on the Zoom calls. But anyway, the one October 7th is going to be here and in public, and that should, if you want to go to that one, that should be an interesting experience. Okay, any other comments? All right, next on the agenda is an update about the ACC from Tom. Tom, take it away.
Hello, everybody. The ACC in the last quarter, since June, heard 7 cases. I'll just highlight each month and each case a little bit. In June, there was a case with the Sheriff's Department regarding unprofessional conduct. A sheriff's deputy pulled over a person because they had flashed their lights at the officer, at the officer's vehicle. And the allegation was when the officer approached the driver that the officer became unprofessional, et cetera. And the body cam didn't support that, so we didn't find against the officer. We had a case that involved, and here again, this is another one of these very difficult cases involving like family law matters, child support or child custody and domestic. And the sheriff's office was actually executing a protective order and an order that required one resident to leave the house. It happened to be the mother. This was down in Sykesville. And it was very tense. They didn't want to allow the police officers access. Eventually, the husband allowed the people to enter the house. The lady had locked herself in a bedroom, wouldn't come out. They eventually talked her out to come out. And in the process, she had one of her children with her. The officer, and she kind of had the child hiding behind her. In order to have access, the officer used an open hand control technique, allowed the other officer to take the child out of the house. Eventually, she gathered up her stuff and left peacefully. It was a tense situation, but the body cam didn't show that the officers used anything other than good judgment. They used their training and experience to de-escalate, and that was the end of the case. We didn't find against the officer. We had a case involving, this was another case more complicated, involving apparently some kind of scam going on in the county that involved pizza delivery and trying to get money out of people. And there was a situation where this pizza driver, this house was being surveilled because this wasn't the first type thing. And this lady received a call in her house that she needed to pay the IRS money or she would lose her pension or something like that. And the police had staked the place out. So this pizza driver, apparently a scam used these pizza drivers to come to houses and then they would see who's home and not, and then they would know if they could safely approach and hit these people up for the money. So this pizza driver is delivering a pizza. He calls back, nobody's home. He starts shaking doorknobs and stuff. And the police had been surveilling the place, then approached him and arrested him based on probable cause. Took the guy in, talked to him and found out that he was a victim of circumstances, that he in fact was trying to deliver a pizza and wasn't part of the scam. And the allegation was that the guy was arrested without an arrest warrant. Well, you guys know that probable cause is enough reason. So eventually they talked to him and released him, and that was the basis of the complaint. We didn't find that the officers acted unprofessionally. They did everything they were supposed to do. We didn't charge the officer. We had a case then from Tawnytown involving, now in this case, we did talk to the chief about this. We're starting to see sometimes that the body cam isn't in a format that we can easily see, and sometimes that the body cam image isn't available because it's gotten erased. You probably understand this case, right? So this officer sees a vehicle with no license tag. He pulls them over, and there's no body cam. I think there was some policy that they were erased when there wasn't a complaint or something filed. You can probably know the details more than me. But in the midst of this, not the driver who was a female, but I guess the husband jumps out and began making all kinds of allegations and things against various officials in Tawnytown that really didn't have anything to do with the case because the person was pulled over not having a tag. The officer gave the person a citation, I believe, and that was the end of the case. So we didn't charge the officer. But the important point wasn't whether we did or didn't. The important thing was about the video. That this body cam footage and in-car camera footage is really critical. Now, in this case, clearly there was no tag on the vehicle, so it was not like a large case. But if it was a complicated case, that could be a real difficult thing to have to deal with. So I just, issue some caution on that point. We had a case in July involving an officer that had made a traffic stop. It was alleged that the officer acted unprofessionally in the traffic stop, and there was no video cam to support that allegation, so we didn't find against the officer. Then we had two cases in August. One was a City of Westminster case. It was involved shoplifting, and the allegation was made that during the arrest process that the officer cuffed the guy too hard and caused damage to his hands. And the video cam didn't support that. The officers were very careful. They double handcuffed the guy. He was big, and we didn't find against the officer. The final case we dealt with was in Manchester. This was another case of video. We never really got the video. It was the only time that we were up against the time limit. Every other case we've had since the ACC has begun, we've never had a situation where we were up against that year and a day. In this case, we didn't really have a lot of ability to send the case back to get it with all the proper evidence. But we had enough evidence based on photos and other things that we could conclude that the officer didn't do anything wrong. In this case, the person had been charged with 3 different violations, 2 traffic and 1 criminal. Plead, jury, trial, went to court, was found guilty and given jail time. So based on that in the video, we determined that in fact the violations did occur. The officer used discretion in the arrest process. He called backup from Hampstead. They were able to then cuff the guy without any kind of incident. So we didn't charge. So that was the cases that we had in the last quarter.
Tom, if I can just offer a summary, it looks like within about a year's time from now, the ACC has had about 47 cases before it. 44 of those 47 cases were dismissed, primarily because the body cam footage bore out what was the situation. The other 3 all resulted in the lowest level of basically additional training, Category A type discipline for minor policy infractions. So, yeah, I mean, and that's the major thing. Having the body cam footage is making sure that these things don't, that we can see what really happened and the truth will out.
Somebody pulls me over because I put high beams in their face, okay? I'm probably unhappy because I got pulled over. And I think that the officer pulling me over just had me all upset. But the officer didn't do anything wrong. He did what he was supposed to do. Maybe we'll say that's one of those kind of calls where maybe he shouldn't have or shouldn't have. But the question is, he did, it happened, and the officer wasn't unprofessional. The body cam tells it all. You can't argue with that. That's how important it is for these officers for their protection. It's really probably in the beginning, it was probably one of the worst things that officers thought could ever happen. Now they'll probably tell you it's pretty good stuff. So, yeah, thanks.
And I'll just say that, sitting on some of the ACC cases myself, we have had instances where the body-worn camera was not available, and it was either erased because the IT person can't keep that much data in his server, or the format of the video was not in a format that was viewable by the members of the ACC. And so the ACC has had some difficulties. It makes it harder when we don't have the video. And so if we would ask the departments if they could work with their IT people to provide a better experience for the ACC when it comes to those videos. There's been a suggestion by the board that maybe we need to institute some kind of county policy through the state's attorney or through the commissioners to improve the way some of these videos are coming in. We certainly don't want to do that, but if you all down on the law enforcement side could try to better ensure that the video is available for us, we would appreciate it very much. It's very important to the deciding of the case.
And Bill, if I can, I think we do want to get some sort of consistency in the body cam footage maintenance time frame. I don't know if law enforcement might have a better idea of what's a reasonable time frame to maintain these things, but I think our concern is the video footage going to be available within the complaint window, right? So that what's a reasonable time frame? I guess we can defer to. We understand it's a huge amount of data. I don't know how the best way to maintain that data is such a volume of footage, but that's one of the things, and I think Todd brought up a good point, is maybe deferring it to the state's attorney for them to come up or see what other jurisdictions are doing for maintenance requirements. But I think, to your point, it's really in the officer's benefit to have that footage, but we gotta find some way to get consistency. But anyway, I think that was our point, was to try to get some consistency and to have footage available as long as the people could complain.
And the other thing to keep in mind, the vast majority of those 44 dismissals were complete exonerations because of what the body cam footage bore out.
Right, that's my concern, is without it, you could be, then it's left up to the people of he said, she said. It's a lot grayer.
Okay, thank you, Ian. We did provide everyone a copy of the complaint log. It's updated as of the last ACC meeting, which was August 18th or so, or 20th. Just want to say that I didn't do a big analysis of the complaints and everything this time. Maybe I'll do one next. But I can definitely tell you that it seems like 80 or 90% of these complaints, if you want to try to identify a trend, it seems like the people are complaining that the officers are rude or they're unprofessional. They're not nice, And I don't think that an officer has to bend over backwards to be nice. And I don't know what we can do about that to improve the perception that the public has when they're meeting with officers. But it's just something to keep in mind, that it seems like most of the civilians, the population of Carroll County, when they encounter a police officer, when they're dealing with one, they don't like the not niceness part. So I know they got a job to do, and they have to be, they have to take control. But is there anything you can do to maybe there's not, but anything you can do to try to make it seem like they're nicer? That would be, all the ones I've ever met are totally, they've been very professional. But just want to throw that out there. Any comments about that?
People
No.
don't like being pulled over?
I guess not. No, I know they don't. That's a good point, yeah. When you pull somebody over, it's already, confrontational. I get it. But, they're breaking the law, so they need to be fixed. Okay. The other thing, while we're on that subject, is of complaints. Sometimes when the complainant gets a letter from the ACC that they don't agree with, the officer's been exonerated or he's been not charged, the charges are unfounded, the complainer doesn't agree with it, and they call the county attorney's office, and they start complaining to the county attorney about how their case was not heard properly and how this was, something that was really bad and nothing's being done. Well, the county attorney, he doesn't know anything about it. And he's trying to deal with these calls the best he can, and he's asked us to reinforce to law enforcement the necessity of the departments to have victims' right advocates to speak with these complainers when they disagree with the finding of the ACC. It's required by the law that the departments have a victims' rights advocate, not a victim's advocate, but a victims' rights advocate. It's required that they have one, and that they can be available to speak to the complainer about their case. And follow it along as it goes, and then talk to them about why and where, to the best of their knowledge, as to why it was decided the way it was. So I have some departments, victims' right advocates. I believe I have Carroll County Sheriff's Office. I believe I have Manchester. I believe I have Westminster. I don't know if I have Hampstead or Town or Sykesville. I don't know if I have those other ones. So we have the ones we have, but if we go through the list and we find we don't have some, we will be contacting you in order to give a name and a number of a victim's right advocate. Or if not a name, what is it that the person has to do to, I know it sometimes changes. So whatever it is, we're going to be contacting you to find out how you'd like to answer that question. All right. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. All right, the next topic on the agenda is update from law enforcement agencies. I see Hampstead is on my right. Chief Snyder, do you have anything to report?
Good morning. Nothing to report, but with reference to some of the discussion that you've had here, we are, to put it in perspective, we're on our third generation of in-car cameras. We've had them for well over 20 years. We're currently on our second generation of body cameras. We had them well before they were required by law. So I can answer some of the things that you've brought up this morning. Retention schedules are necessary because there is a cost associated with data. Now, the municipalities, we have budgets we work within. It can get relatively expensive. So what will happen is if you have a, say for instance, a generic traffic stop, and I believe ours is maybe 8 months for a citation or after adjudication. So if you have someone that has complained in, an extended period of time and it fit the criteria, and obviously on October 1st, some of those timelines change it, but as you said earlier, there really was a broad brush as far as a timeline goes. It is very possible that some of the camera has been, the camera footage has been deleted. I think it's important for the board to keep in mind too, you're going to have cases where there will not be video. You'll have one at least next month, Tom, that will not have video. It's a he said, she said. There are complaints that are made relative to phone conversations that take place, things that wouldn't necessarily be recorded. So keep that in mind. Not everything is going to be as simple as a video, and sometimes the video is not going to show everything. One of the things that happens in a lot of police management training now is they talk about being aware of what the video shows and what it does not show. That's where it becomes important, at least what I stress to our folks. Make sure when you're preparing your reports that you put the appropriate things, your perspective, what you were thinking of, stuff that isn't necessarily going to be obvious on a video. With reference to the issues with the processing of the videos, as I said, we've been processing them quite some time. I would suggest that you reach out to the state's attorney's office. Their digital evidence unit is very good. They get a huge quantity of videos. I can tell you just from our little tiny dot in the map, I sent them between 25 and 30 videos last week, I'm sorry. So to give you an idea of the perspective that they process, and they don't seem to have any issues. So they may be able to give you some insight as to how to process them, how to look at them, the do's and don'ts. With reference to the victim's advocate, that would be me, ultimately. Typically, the investigator will stay in contact with whoever the person is making the complaint. But ultimately, when they have a beef with whatever the decision was, all right, that's going to rest to me.
Okay.
I think that's about it.
Thank you, Chief Snyder.
Thank you.
But I think the challenge is right now the county's sending out the letter, but the local jurisdiction is the one that's involved in the process, right? So you just send out the letter, so it doesn't always have since the letter's coming from the county, they think they should call the county so that's why we really need to get the victim's advocate information in there, so we can say, if you have any questions, contact your victim's advocate.
Well, in all fairness, I think we've changed that a little bit too as time has gone on. There was a time when the agency sent the letter.
Right.
Initially, it started out, the county would send the letter, then it went to the agency sending the letter, because I sent several letters, and now my understanding is it's back to the county sending the letter.
Well, technically, from the beginning, the letters were supposed to come from the ACC, but by, I guess, gentleman's agreement, we allowed the police agencies to do that for us. So the county attorney, me, nobody else was getting those calls. But in reassessing it after some additional training we had down at the Sykesville, determination was made that to keep everything above board, we should do that. And in the process of doing that we just needed to name that person. So we have gone this iteration. I think now we're where we're supposed to be legally, and I think that's the best course.
That's fine. In the past, to be honest with you, before this was all created, we would send letters at the conclusion of it.
Chief Snyder, with regard to the retention of the video data, you mentioned something about talking to the state's attorney's office?
As far as processing.
Yeah.
So there's
The view.
a huge volume of video that's sent to them literally on a daily basis. In fact, I did 3 this morning before I came over here. So their digital evidence unit has been processing at least our video for probably close to 5 years. There's a link that's sent to them. They review it. There's certain protocols they have depending on the case. They do a lot of redaction and preparation for ultimately the presentation that's going to go on in court. And what I would suggest to you is they handle so much. They're a good group of people. If there's any kind of issues, problems, concerns that the board has, they'd be a great resource because they do it all the time.
So are you saying that we could get the video from them?
I'm saying that if you're having problems with viewing the videos, I suggest those folks as a potential resource on how you can open the videos, process the videos, how you can look at them. Because they do it, they have a staff over there that sees countless videos. Probably the last thing they do is when they leave the office is turn the television on because that's what they do all day long. But they should be able to help you with, we send them links and it's rarely there's any kind of issue.
And just as a curious, do all the departments do that? They send those videos?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right, thank you. Any,
Is that it's not every video that's taken, that's just the videos that are going
The
to be in
ones
court?
that they request.
Yeah, they will request because of some kind of court case.
Anything that will go to court.
Right.
So generally what we'll do is, if we have, this morning I had some traffic offenses that will be must appears. So that means that there's going to be a court process associated with it. Typically what we do, at least at Hampstead, is I try to stay ahead of the curve. So we'll send those videos before they even ask for them and give them, this is the particulars. Because what happens is if we wait until they have court dates, it can be overwhelming for us. I mean, we're a small little dot in the map. It's getting close to the point where we may have to bring somebody in, hire an employee just to process the videos. Because it's not as simple as just the body camera. If you have an in-car system on ours, we use the Motorola system. It used to be called WatchGuard. There's actually 3 cameras
Right.
that are running at the same time. So for every incident, there's
see.
at least 4, if it's a traffic stop, we've been talking a lot about traffic stops. For every traffic stop, there's at least 4 videos that have to be processed. So if I call Chris for a backup, and Bill, you show up as a backup, I now have 12 videos
That's right.
for a traffic stop that may be as simple as, a suspended driver or an uninsured driver. And each one of those has to be processed, packaged, and sent to the state's attorney's office.
interesting. Thank you. That's good to know. And so maybe if we have trouble viewing one, we could reach out to the state's attorneys and see if they have some magic button that they push that we
I think
can push.
one of the problems is that because of confidentiality, we have to view these on a county device, which is basically an Apple tablet. And what I could see on like Beth's computer on her desk is a whole lot different than what I'm gonna be able to see on that tablet. And I think it's a technical thing as much as whether we have it or not.
You're also talking about an entire digital evidence unit. Versus me, wearing 40 different hats. I don't have the same software or data or whatever system they're all using. If there were 10 people processing it, it probably wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you, Bethany. All right, moving right along to your right, sir. Could you have anything to report?
Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Christian Price. I'm the acting chief right now at Westminster City. Obviously, Chief Ledwell has retired. So I've been his deputy chief for the past 2 years. So it's a pleasure to meet all of you. I look forward to working with you. Maybe afterwards I'll introduce myself personally so I can get everybody's name and just kind of become familiar with it. So I'm just going to kind of touch on a couple of things that Chief touched on here, especially in regards to the retention and the size of the departments and things like that. There was really no detention or retention schedule sent down when they passed the bill with the body-worn cameras. So the departments have created their own retention schedules. And a lot of that is based on storing the data, right? Which is the major cost in this whole program. So, what we can do from Westminster City specifically is we can send you our retention schedule so you guys have an idea of what we've set so that you can see what our retention schedule is. Based on these updates in the law, we'll go back and we'll look at our retention schedules and make sure that we can kind of maximize what we can do as an agency. But I think that'd probably be helpful to you all to understand what our retention schedules are right now.
Could I ask you a question on that? What if there's a situation where it's there's a warning given and not a citation?
Yep.
How do you handle that as far as video?
So we have it broken down into different categories. A minor motor vehicle violation, whether it's a warning or a traffic citation, has the same retention schedule. And don't ask me what it is right off the top of my head. So, but I think right now we're keeping that at least for a year, maybe a year and a half. And then major motor vehicle, it's a little bit longer retention schedule because that's going to have to go to court, obviously. And then, obviously, as you go up, misdemeanor crimes has its own retention schedule, felony, homicide, stuff like that, so.
Okay.
But we can provide that information to you so you have an understanding. But we have different categories for different types of retention periods.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the VRA, what we found that we do is once we get the letter from the ACC, we have our own form letter from our VRA that sends out to the complainant. So kind of piggybacking on the letter that you send out, I think that really helps us in making them understand that who our VRA is and who they can contact. So it just might be something that somewhat other departments might want to mirror to kind of clear up that confusion that is occurring on that end. So I'm not sure what Chief Ledwell did. Obviously, it's my first meeting, but I'm going to kind of give you hopefully it's the same update that he gave you.
He was very efficient.
Well, I know he was. I got some shoes to fill.
Right.
So,
Nice.
yeah, I'm trying. So, this past quarter, or reporting period, we had 8 reported uses of force, 4 arrest, detention, search reviews. I think you guys might be doing, have you guys started passing this out so far? Because this last reporting period, we had 10 complaints or inquiries, which have resulted in 7 current internal investigations. I don't know if Chief Ledwell went into more detail about what each specific one was.
He used to give us like a printed out report. Which was,
I have it for you.
yeah. So that was
So-
that's what we were going by. Yep.
He didn't go into the details.
Okay.
That'll be sent to the ACC.
Okay. So I will give this to you all so that you have the same report that he provided you before. And I guess that's about it. But I just wanted to introduce myself, and obviously I'll give everybody my contact information. If you got any questions for Westminster City, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Chief Price. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have is, I understand that Westminster is submitting 6 cases to the ACC for this month.
Correct.
I don't think you've ever submitted 6 cases before in a row like that.
So that's why I was asking about your pamphlet, because we've seen a lot of inquiries come in the last couple of months.
I don't think the pamphlet has been really released yet.
So, but it's okay. I mean, we are submitting 6 cases. We're following the process, and we just had a month where we got a lot of complaints, but I think you're going to see from the body worn camera that most of them are frivolous.
And they're just different complaints at different periods. It's not one big thing that happened.
No,
that
just
caused a-
different officers, different things. So, just had a busy reporting period.
Okay, thank you. And did you say that you were going to have, you have 6 this month. Did you say there was going to be a couple of more next month?
This report captures the majority of the complaints that you're getting this month. So I think there might be 2 outside of that, other than the 6 that you're getting.
All right. Thank you, Chief Price. All right, there's another new face.
So I'm Lieutenant Jesse Castellar. I'm filling in for Chief Baker today.
Okay.
Good morning. So I really don't have anything to add. As far as that case you were speaking of, we have corrected some retention issues that we've had, especially when it comes to minor violations like that. I believe our retention before was 90 days, and now it goes over a year, and some things just don't delete until we delete it from the system, so.
Yeah, I believe the case, and I think I maybe misspoke, I think the case in Tonytown resulted in a warning given
Yes.
over the license, and I
Mhm.
think that was the issue
Yes.
where it came into play. Normally, you wouldn't think a warning was gonna generate a
No,
complaint,
and
but.
we have certain tags too, as far as like different categories to tag these videos, as far as when it's tagged a certain way, it'll delete from the system. And we've improved on that with input from the officers and also from the retention that we just exceeded, past what it was, so.
Yeah, I think Tawnytown was one of the departments we had an issue with the retention
Yes.
of the videos. And so you're saying you're making some progress?
Yeah, we are making some progress, speaking with our IT department. Of course, it costs a little bit of money, but it's something that had to be done, so.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. And you're not having any cases this,
I believe we've sent one. here recently, within the last couple of days?
Well, we heard from the chief that that was supposed to happen, but I don't believe it came in by Friday, last Friday.
Okay,
I know the case, and he told me last week that we would have it by Thursday or Friday, but according to Beth, it hadn't come.
okay. I will get with the chief and
If
see
that's the
what,
case, that'll roll over to next month.
okay, all right. I will get the chief and see what the issue is with that then.
And that was the one that, somebody said Montgomery County investigated it for you? Was that
Rock-
Rockville,
Frederick?
Rockville, yeah.
Rockville Police?
Yeah, I think they're out of Montgomery County. PG County,
Okay, well, we're looking forward to hearing that one. It certainly is an interesting case.
yes.
And this was a case, for everybody's information, was a situation where an officer of Tawnytown was up in Pennsylvania,
Yes,
and there was an argument at a baseball game or something, and he stepped in to try to calm the situation, and he had a complaint filed against him.
yes, he did.
So we'll certainly see how that goes. All right, thank you for that update. One of the other things that I placed on the agenda is law enforcement time, number 11. I know you all have already given us a lot of information, but if there's anything you'd like to, give us, then tell us, any complaints you have about us or anything, any comments, concerns, anything on your mind, this is an opportunity for you all to speak up and give us your feelings. No, nothing?
Complaints from Tawnytown.
Okay. Anybody else? Bethany, anything from you, or? I see we have another good attorney back there. Thank you for coming in Tim's place. Okay. Next one is other concerns in business. Any other issues?
No, I mean, I think one of the takeaways, of course, as we start to roll out some community outreach and education, is we want to balance possibly what we're looking on the accommodation side as well. But also just being mindful that we are certainly not trying to solicit more. We're trying to educate some rights and laws, but there may be some unintended effects for a period of time that we should be aware of and mindful of as we're speaking with the public. So it's,
One of the things I'm reminded of is, as Lisa was talking about that, is we are trying to do some outreach, and we are trying to partner up with law enforcement. One of the things that was mentioned as part of our outreach effort, and this, you may not like this, but I'm gonna put it out there anyway, is we were thinking that if the PAB could have a QR code on the police department's website, which would take people to the PAB website, that would be something that may help us get the word out. And of course, in return, we would put the law enforcement QR code on our website, so it would be a two-way street. It's just something for you to think about. I'm not saying that, I'm not pushing it, but it may be, it would be good for, in the effort of outreach, it would be something that we would be worth talking about. And it maybe down the road, we'll have our administrative staff send you all a request to speak with your IT people about that possibility, if it's something that you all are willing to do. Just think about it, is all I'm saying.
I think if you could stress the courteousness, I know it's not a requirement, right, to be courteous, but if you can be like, yes, ma'am, we're gonna lock you up. Yes, sir, we're gonna have to hit you with a nightstick. Thank you for your cooperation. Whatever has to follow your actual law enforcement duties with courtesy may help eliminate some of the frivolous complaints, because that's obviously the trend we're seeing is it's these courtesy complaints, which really don't rise to the level of a violation, but end up taking a lot of time to go through and adjudicate, and then they stay on the record too, which we don't like. We don't like the fact that they stay on the officer's record forever and ever and ever. So whatever you can do to improve courtesy while you're doing your job is certainly appreciated by all, I think. So.
Okay. We're getting ready to adjourn, but before we do, I just want to say, Lisa, we talked about over the email about the putting a commendation form on our website, and we were going to talk to Bethany about that. So after the meeting concludes, maybe we could huddle a little bit.
That is something that some of the other counties are doing, and as we do the outreach, it would be nice to solicit both good and good feedback as well as negative feedback. I've had experience before, actually, I got a traffic stop and got a warning, and I wrote a nice letter to it was actually Baltimore County, it was right on the Carroll County-Baltimore County line, when I was talking on my cell phone, back in the day before good Bluetooth. But anyway, it is a good opportunity, I think, for both. And if we could roll it out with both, I think it may help things on the community outreach and community relations in general.
Yeah, we have a complaint button, but we don't have a commendation button. So we want to talk about how we can get that going on as well. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns before we adjourn? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.